What better way to follow up an NDI camera than with an SRT camera? And obviously it would help if we understood the differences between these and where would you use one over the other. So we have here a SRT camera. This is for remote production. You can send this camera anywhere across the regular internet and it will send video back to your SRT decoder or something like vMix. NDI you can use within your studio, within your house of worship, within your intranet facility for sending high bandwidth, high quality video around at very low latencies. SRT, by contrast, secure, reliable transport, while it's pretty quick for what it does have a little bit more latency. And we'll compare the two side by side a little bit further on. But let's take a look at the camera first. On the front, unsurprisingly, is the lens, and this one comes with a 2.8 to 12 millimeter lens. Also on the top is a handy sticker telling you what the IP address of the unit is when it comes to you, just in order for you to get set up with that. On the bottom, quarter 20, as you might expect. On the side, a nice logo telling you what different formats this unit can do. RTMP, RTSP, HTTP, RTP, UDP, HLS, and missing from this list is SRT, which is, of course, what we're going to be talking about today. On the back, the important bits, we have the RJ45 for the SRT. We have got a 12-volt power connector, USB for antenna, antenna port for antenna, audio in, RS485, audio loop through for a pair of headphones, and an SD card to record to internally, just in case you do happen to lose your internet while you're doing your remote production. With that, let's take a look at how to configure this camera. In here, we've got the web UI. We just entered that IP address that was on the top of the sticker there. I changed it to .167 because we have a lot of devices on the network that have a .168 address. And I just came in here and changed this number off by 1 so that it was unique on my network. And all of your other network settings are here. We can also assign DHCP if you're into that. And then let's get to the encoder. We can go through and we've got all the settings that we might want to have, from resolution and frame rate and bit rate and profile, that we can use to craft our stream for the kind of production and connection and platform that we're going to. And then down here we have our RTSP connections, our RTSP port, our RTP, RTMP down here. And then last but not least is the SRT setup. So what I've done here is I've set this up as a caller. This is ideal for sending it out into the field because it's calling back to your studio. And at your studio, you have the port forwarding done. And this IP address would be the IP address of your studio. And then this would be the port that you're forwarding from your router to your vMix system or to your SRT decoder. So we'll take these two pieces of information, really just this one in this case, and we will go into vMix and we will remove the existing SRT stream and we will add a new SRT stream. So we come in here and we select listener. It's the corresponding part to a caller. I pasted in my port number for 5001. I'm going to leave my latency and all those settings the same. And after a few moments, the two machines will negotiate and talk to each other, and we will be sending SRT from anywhere on Earth or within your studio back to whatever your SRT decoder is. While we have them both, I figured we should compare the NDI and SRT cameras side by side. Mainly it's a workflow comparison. I'm not trying to say one is better than the other in terms of quality. Technically, NDI at full NDI at 100 megabits per second is going to have to beat out a 6 megabit SRT stream. But if we take a look at the ability of SRT to send its video pretty much anywhere, whereas NDI is just going to be limited within a studio, obviously there are pros and cons to each technique. But let's just take a look at how they live side by side and the latency that we can see different between them. First, what we'll do is we will add both our sources, one by NDI and the other by SRT. NDI is pretty easy. We just select NDI and we look up our, look for the picture of the camera with the name that we're looking for, and it gets added here. So here's our NDI camera. As we can see, that's pretty quick. And then we're going to add our SRT camera, just like we did last time, except for I'm going to use a shortcut this time, and click OK. Also, pretty easy to add if you know your IP address and if you've done your port forwarding correctly. It does take a little bit longer to show up, and as we can see, the latency is a little bit different. So the amount of time that it takes for the video to go from the camera through the different protocols and buffering and algorithms is very different. And that's because they have very different intentions. SRT, Secure Reliable Transport, uses that buffer, that delay, to deal with lossy Wi-Fi and dropped packets at your ISP and DDoS attacks on various nodes between here and there. And for sure, this is a solution that you should look at if you are in remote production. If you need to send video back to a central location from any kind of fixed or mobile kind of contribution, whether you're doing mobile events or conferences, or if you are working, for example, with funeral homes where you have to bring in a certain number of SRT sources to a central facility for production, or if you're sending up to the cloud, something like running vMix on AWS, you can use a collection of these cameras in a single or multiple locations to bring these back to a central cloud server for RTMP production to Facebook or YouTube, or simply just to record that output and further post it to an online VOD source. So that's the SRT camera from PTZCam. If you have any further questions about it, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at usbroadcast.co. And